Gowan. Yeah, that's me. It, go win is the best attitude you can have, but I'm mischievous that way. My name is pronounced Gowan. Yeah. I love peace. Yeah. Yes. That's that's so many questions wrapped up into one. Like, where do I pick a question? Any question. Now, don't look at it. Now, put it back in the deck, and I'm going to tell you what it was. Um, let's see. Where do we want to start? Breath. Yes. Okay. Yeah. You can hear my guest, but not the host. And it doesn't look like it's
I think I
broadcasting to
figured it out.
YouTube yet.
Can you hear me now?
Would-
Yes? Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me now. Let's start over. Can I get a thumbs up from anybody? Can somebody write it in the comment section if they can hear me?
And it doesn't seem to be
Edna?
broadcasting to YouTube right now.
It should be because I have 2 comments from YouTube.
Oh.
No? Yes. Oh, good. Okay. Yes. Okay. Great. All right. Let's do this. So I'm going to
Okay.
just start from the beginning. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching Modern Aging, and we are here chatting with Paul Gowan today. Paul Gowan is a former Marine. He is a veteran who has turned into a peacemonger, and I met him about a year ago at a conference. No, actually, it was on a call. But anyway, you
Yeah.
have helped a lot of people with fear and anxiety, and I feel like that's pretty prevalent right now, clearly with the pandemic. And I myself have suffered from it when I usually am pretty calm, I have to say, but this has kind of thrown me for a loop. And so I'm hoping that we
Yeah.
can give people some tools so that we can help them, deal with this. Wondering what you're doing right now
Yeah,
for self-care.
absolutely. Well, I would say it comes down to that taking a deep breath like you're talking about. And maybe an exercise that we can do for your audience is to play with the breath to gain some perspective. This is something I'm doing with my clients. This is something you and I have done together. Can we start with that?
Sure.
So
Yes,
let's start with the opposite of what we want to feel like. So whatever you're doing, if you're driving right now, this isn't for you, okay? if you're seated, I want you to collapse your posture. I want you to roll your shoulders forward. I want you to hunch your spine. I want you to epitomize bad posture. I want every chiropractor in the world to just go, no! Now I want you to breathe real shallow, real up high in your throat, constrict your throat, and it doesn't take long. A few breaths. You're going to shallow that out. And maybe you're going to feel some emotions or some racing thoughts as you do this. You can kind of feel that difference, okay? Now I want to show you that piece for your freedom. So now sit up strong and tall in your chair. Elongate your spine. Imagine there's a thread coming through the top of your head, going up to the heavens, stretching you out even taller. Now grow even taller. Now balance out your feet and your arms and use your hand, put it on your stomach. We're going to do what's called the diaphragmatic breath, which is Latin for we're going to gut breathe. So breathing in through our nose, we're going to expand out our stomach. We're going to count in for 5. We're going to hold our breath for 5. And then we're going to push the air out through our mouth through a milkshake straw. Not a coffee straw because those are useless sticks with holes in them. Not a soda straw because, don't drink soda. Milkshake straw. Nice, big, fat, juicy milkshake straw. Okay, so here we go. Take a cleansing breath. Now we're going to breathe in for 5 through the nose. Here we go. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Push it out through the milkshake straw. 4, 5, 6, 7. Do it again. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Push it out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Last one. And in. 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Push it out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In that space of taking command of your breath, now you can check into what is actually going on. As we're faced with the media, as we're faced with our fears, and as we're faced with everything else, we may not have created a space for us to figure out what we're feeling. So it is in your breath that you gain that perspective so you can orient yourself and figure out, well, what do you want to do next? And that is the first thing that I'm doing is I am breathing a lot more frequently than I have in the last few months. I had a breathing practice. I had a meditation practice, and I've increased it drastically as I'm working through my own fears and anxiety. So I think that was a great way that we started off this this call here.
No, it feels great, actually. I think I really needed that. It's been a stressful day, so so thank you for
absolutely,
that.
Absolutely.
I mean, so what's happening with the body when we have this anxiety? Like sometimes oftentimes I feel like it feels uncontrollable, right?
Right.
I am someone who is pretty calm under stress, in stressful situations, normally.
Yes.
And I'm able to, I think I kind of take it out in laughter. There's a couple people here I work with, so I think they probably know when I'm stressed out and when I'm not. But I got to say, my daughter came home with symptoms, which we are not 100% sure that it was COVID-19, but it pretty much... She had all the typical symptoms. We could not get her tested. We tried. And it was frightening. And she came home with a fever saying, I don't feel well, Mom. And I lost it. And I was like, oh, my God, this thing is real. This pandemic is coming. Right. And I don't know what to do about it. I can't, what's going to happen now? Right.
Right.
And I broke down. And then I kind of got myself together after that. But it just... I think that's what it is. It just comes out of nowhere. And I didn't know how to control it.
It does. It blindsides you. Right. Absolutely. And that totally makes sense. Fear has 3 universal reactions. And a lot of your listeners probably already know this. They all start with the letter F, and I love to have alliteration in what I do in life because it makes it more fun. And as I'm going through the frameworks, as I'm facing fear or anxiety, having that fun already architected into the system helps me come out of the fear and that anxiety. So there's 3 universal reactions: fight, flight, and freeze. So when you feel like everything, that you're losing it and you don't know what to do, that could be that freeze and that fight. I want to go get some help, but it's not there. I'm guessing that there was a little bit of rush to the hospital, and I don't even want to guess the look you gave the person who said, we cannot test your baby.
Well, I kind of yeah. I mean, it was on the phone, and it was just, honestly, I was just not surprised, which is sad too.
Right.
Kind of following what was happening and knowing that we were unprepared. And I'm like, okay, well, just pretend, you just have to act as though she has it. And quite frankly, I have a friend now who has symptoms, and she can't get tested because her fever isn't high enough. So there's a lot of this going on, and of course that creates more anxiety.
Right.
So it's pretty scary.
Right. And all of what we're talking to here is that we don't know. And that there's a universality of fear of the unknown, whether it's public speaking or a roller coaster or our first day on the job or at school. You're going to have that fear of the unknown. And you said you do well in stressful situations. You're an international television director. Can you think back to maybe the first time you were calling the shots on a set? Did you have a little bit of anxiety or fear?
Of course. Actually, the very first time I was on a set, I did cry.
You did cry. Yeah, you
course.
had that emotional outlet.
Yeah, things were not happening that day. You know, and
right.
I think it's varying degrees of anxiety, but this is pretty hardcore what's going on right now. And so I don't know if there are things that people can do to really help the chatter in their head, right? And to like kind of take them off the ledge.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And to give a little bit of background, so as a combat veteran and some trauma from my childhood, I have post-traumatic stress. Out of frame, your pup was in the frame. He came up to participate in the breathing exercise. My service dog is just out of frame. And she's trained to help me when I have anxiety or panic attacks and in social situations so I can interact with people. So I have been at this level of anxiety to where I wouldn't even be able to leave my house. And this was years ago, before COVID was even on the distant horizon. And so I've developed these techniques for me to come back in with society, manage my emotions. It's not that I stop feeling. It's that I use these tools to guide and direct how I'm feeling, to express that emotion. And in doing so, I gain the ability to take command. And that's ultimately what I teach people to do. In my business, I train people to take command in their life, in their relationships, in their business. And when you can follow a prescriptive framework, even with the unknown, you can take some sort of action. In doing that, you will be in command. You're not going to necessarily be in control. You're not going to magic the vaccine for COVID-19. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking command of the only thing that you have the ability to take command of, which is yourself. So after you take that breath and you're feeling these different things, and think back to when COVID not only showed up on your doorstep, it crossed your doorstep and it went to her room. So as you think about that, right, that was fear. And as you have the courage to acknowledge that fear and state very directly what is at stake here. Can we do this? Can we do this right now?
Sure. With me, or you want to ask? You want me to ask somebody out in the cyberspace? How do I do this?
I don't know. Which way would you want to do that?
I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to leave a comment on my own thing. I see the comments.
You can. I think you can click add to broadcast if you're using the same program I am.
Yeah, but I don't know how to. Okay, so let me ask. Does anybody out there want to share? Otherwise, I will share.
We'll do this live. Yeah.
Love the powerful relationship between courage and fear. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, but I mean, I see a lot of people that I also know here on watching on Facebook and watching on YouTube, which is pretty cool. Well, why don't we go through my example because it was very recent.
Okay.
But yeah, so what do you want me to share?
So go back to that moment when your daughter, your baby, comes up and says, "Mom, I'm not feeling good. I have a temperature," and you're connecting her symptoms that she's reporting to the symptoms of COVID. So what is the fear here?
Well, it goes from this pandemic is real. How serious is her illness going to get? Is she going to be hospitalized? Oh my God, this is not only the elderly. Am I equipped to be able to take care of her? Are we going to get it? Am I going to get it now? Is my husband going to get it?
Yeah. Now let me jump in. Go direct, go deep with your daughter. What is the biggest fear?
With my daughter? I mean, the biggest fear is whether or not she would die from this.
Right.
But I wouldn't allow myself to go there. And then I tried to have logic set in that it's not, it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to go all the way there. 80% of people I knew, survive it and have mild cases. So I'm like,
right.
Okay.
And I'm gonna come from a place of, before we allow logic to take an option off the table, go there. Acknowledge that base fear that you could lose your daughter. You could lose your baby. Do you want to put words to that emotion right now? I promise there's a really, really great step two.
Well, I lost my mom recently, so
yeah,
all this is very raw. And
yes.
So no, I can't go that, if I put the words to it. Damn.
So focus in on your breath now. Go back to that first step with your breath. Did you feel how your breath kind of like cut off and that there was that constriction in your throat? When you feel that happen, go back to the first step.
Right.
Which is that breath. So just take command of your breath. Start there. Go ahead and just put your hand on your stomach. Take that nice diaphragmatic breath, which is Latin or German or something for gut breath. I'm from Montana. We just speak simply. It's a gut breath. Okay? Take command of that breath. And for anybody that's watching and listening to this, give some love to Risa. She is doing this live in front of the entire world.
People who know me know I cry pretty easily.
This is something you can do too, is as you feel through whatever fear it is. If your loved one has COVID, my mom has a second kidney transplant. She has zero immune system. Zero. She's on medicine to not have an immune system, because otherwise it's going to reject this kidney that she has transplanted. So I'm feeling this very much with you. As I went through this a few days ago, that I said, I fear my mother dying. She has come through all of these things, and now we've got COVID? No, I didn't approve this. I didn't schedule this. And it was like, nope. Have the discipline. Acknowledge what the fear is. Okay? And then several times I checked back in on my breath. So how are you feeling with your breath now? You took a few breaths there? Good.
No, I have to say the breathing... Well, first of all, people have to be reminded to breathe, which is because at the time, in the moment, it's really hard. But I think it really does. It's amazing physiologically what happens when you do take those deep breaths. Yeah, sorry, people. I didn't mean to do that.
No. I've got a dress shirt on, so like my nose knows when I go to cry if I have a dress shirt on or not, because it will have a competition with my eyeballs for which body part can like get rid of more bodily fluids. And if I have a dress shirt on, my nose is like, I'm gonna win. So you took those breaths. Now acknowledge that fear again. Say it again, because then we're gonna move on to the next step.
That she could possibly die.
Mm-hmm. Now this is where we create perspective. Perspective can come from our elders. It's not that far ago that we had people walking around in braces because they survived polio. It's still not uncommon for people to have malaria around the world. It's not that frequent of a case here in America, but it is still abundant throughout a lot of the world. So we seek perspective. And if anything, we can create perspective within ourselves by reverse engineering the Serenity Prayer. Can I change what's going on? Yes, no, don't know. So can you change your daughter's symptoms? Yes, no, don't know.
No, but I want to try.
No. Right. So let's explore this a little bit. So if no, then you create serenity. And there's ways that create serenity for you. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's prayer. We definitely know it's that breath work that we just did. So you come up with 3 ways ahead of time, ahead of the emergency, ahead of the fear, to work and generate that serenity. Now, let's say that there are some things that you can do, because last time I checked, drinking water, I have been pounding water. Holy smokes, I've been drinking so much water. I was getting ready for this call, and it was like 5 minutes out. I'm like, let me use the bathroom again. And then it was like 3 minutes out. I'm like, nope, let me do it in the bathroom one more time, because I've been drinking so much water. And we know that that's going to help with some of the symptoms. So if you come back, well, with yes, Paul, there is something I can do. Okay, great. Then I want you to generate the courage to take that action. And there's 3 things that you can think about ahead of time to generate courage at any time. It's going to involve activating your voice for one of those steps. And this is where I really focus my coaching practice, is with the power of your words. Because then we can calibrate what's going on with our body, and we can take the action to align our words, our soul, our everything. It's just a fabulous alignment tool. So sometimes courage is like a power pose. Sometimes it's putting on some really great music. Maybe it's all both of those, and going out for a walk or something. For you, it might be, I think you had this great Instagram post of how you're bringing care to your daughter and minimizing exposure of infection to yourself.
Right.
That's courage, because you're not going in to make yourself a martyr. You have the discipline to know, if I don't keep myself safe and she is infected and I get sicker than her, then I can't take care of her. That's courage, Risa. So let's go back to this. Yes, no, don't know. Can I change it? Yes, no, don't know. And you come back with, I don't know. That's an acceptable answer. And that's where you create some more wisdom. And some wisdom. This isn't time to call your boys or your girls and be like, oh my God, can you believe this is happening? No. You call a sage advisor. You call someone to counsel you. You call that person from a previous generation. You call that coach. You go up to the World Health Organization website. You stay away from the media that is just sensationalizing and ramping up the fear because it works for ratings. You stay away from that. If you want to stay up to date with what's going on for the economic stimulus package, or who said what about what disease today, give yourself a 5-minute window. I'll guarantee you, if you give yourself 5 minutes, you will find the pieces that are most applicable to your situation.
100% agree. Yeah.
And so all of this comes from a thing that my dad taught me. It's the cornerstone of all 12-step programs. It's the Serenity Prayer. And join in if you know the words. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So if we just reverse engineer that and just say, with anything going on in life, can I change it? Yes, no, don't know. If yes, generate courage. And then you have 3 ideas of how you can generate courage in a moment. If no, then you generate serenity. And then create those 3 ideas. Take action on one or all of those 3 ideas. And if I don't know, then you take action to create wisdom. When you do that, the biggest thing is that you take some sort of action and then go into a little closed loop cycle. Because fear and anxiety is a closed loop cycle of I don't know, and I'm not taking any action to figure things out or gain perspective. When you take command of this, you are gaining perspective, you are educating yourself, and you are taking action. If nothing else, to change the way you're breathing, to create some clarity for your mind. And that's the biggest way that we can come together and not just like go storm the toilet paper aisle.
Somehow that's...
We're getting ready to go to the black market of eBay to find toilet paper over here, because we've been attempting to get it for like 4 weeks, and we
somehow
can't
it brings, I don't know, it brings comfort to people.
Right. Well, if you're like me and Montana, it's called Kleenex on a roll. So whether you're in the bathroom doing your business or you're crying because of stress, you can use one simple tool. But either way, like, we're stuck here in Phoenix trying to get some. So how do you feel now?
You'll be fine.
Right? Yeah. How do you feel now? Like, you recognize that you're having the courage to take some action. You also recognize that you have the serenity, that a lot of this is way outside of your control. And you're also taking action to create some wisdom. So you're hitting all 3, Risa. Not surprising, because you're just such an amazing leader. How do you feel as you go through that framework?
You just start... I feel more confident, and that when I understand what it is that I can do, and you are able to differentiate that between what you cannot do, it does make it easier. It just is when you don't allow it to overwhelm yourself, right? I mean, it's also like for production for me. There are certain things that you just realize completely out of your control, right? And you kind of just put that in a certain column so that you can figure out and look at the things that you can control. And so I applied that to this, right? So that's what I end up applying it. But 99.9% of the time, no one's life is at risk. You know what I mean? And you also don't want to make the wrong decision, and you want to be doing the right thing. So, when the stakes aren't so high, the stress is not so high. But now, for this pandemic, the stakes are high, and people don't want to be making mistakes. And when you feel a heaviness in your chest, even though it's minor, you watch the news, and then you start to spin out of control because you're like, is this it? And
right.
Exacerbating the problem. That's the so I just want to help people be able to differentiate, right? So when the symptoms are serious enough, because the reality is that you don't want to be rushing to a hospital right now.
No.
They're overcrowded, and they're full of, there's just so many ways to get it in a hospital. It's like that's what scares me, is those people go in a panic, not knowing what to do. So if they can kind of have some exercises, like you say, right? Sit down and really assess what's happening, whether it's a family member or themselves, to make, that's the problem, is that a lot of doctors, because this is so new, it's like the Wild West right now, I feel like.
What I love is that you compared this to something that you do have proficiency in, that you do have knowledge of, like when you're doing your production. So in the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps' sole job is combat. And they dress it up really nice, and they say that every Marine's a rifleman, which is really nice to say that every Marine's job is to kill. And then there's other jobs. Like my first job was in the Marine Band, and then I was a military police officer, and then I was a personnel officer. But everybody's primary job is to kill. So because of that, there's some universal truths around the primary place that happens, which is a combat zone, that we were trained at, like boot camp, officer candidate school, that the war is going to create an unknowing. They call it the fog of war, that you just don't know. It's going to be a very fluid, dynamic environment where no plan. There's so many cliches. If there's Marines in the audience, I hope they're grinning as they recollect this. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. That doesn't mean you stop planning. That means that you're fluid and you're highly responsive. You take a look at, well, based off of what I know now, what is the action I'm going to take? You don't just sit there and be like, hold on, can you cease fire real quick there on the right flank? I wasn't anticipating, I wasn't planning for this. If you could just please return fire in about 200 more meters, we're going to have a little bit better cover and concealment. No. Action now. And we did this at the very beginning of the call. When you can take that action of taking that breath, that is what I taught all of the Marines that I instructed for shooting rifles and shooting pistols for over a 15-year career. It starts with your breath. And then you can decide what to do from there. That is the most important piece. When you have the courage to acknowledge what you're truly afraid of, then you can take action to solve that fear. Then you take action. So it's that awareness, that acknowledgement, that perspective, and that action. I guess if that was an acronym, it'd be APA. Almost like a band from the 70s.
Almost.
Almost. That's before your time.
So I don't know if anybody in the audience has had any issues with anxiety, or have had family members or friends that have kind of experiences of kind of allowing their thoughts or allowing the news or whatever to spin out of control. And I think that there are people like me who, this is what's crazy, is that like normally I don't suffer from anxiety, right? So
Right.
I can't imagine those who do suffer from anxiety and then having this on top of it, right? Because
I love that you said that, because you and I have worked together for a little bit, so I geek out with words. Like, people are like, "Well, what are you? Are you a coach? Are you a consultant? Or what?" I'm a word nerd, and I change people's lives in a conversation. And one of the ways that I was able to change my life is, instead of saying I struggle with post-traumatic stress, like, think about this for a second. I have blue eyes. Do you know what that means?
you're sensitive to light.
I am sensitive to light. So that means I wear sunglasses every time I go outside, especially here in Phoenix. If I lived in Portland or something like that, maybe not. Or Seattle, where some of my friends are at, maybe I'd be okay. Does it mean I'm a miserable failure of a human being because I wear sunglasses when I go outside? No. No. Does it mean I struggle with having blue eyes? Well, I could say that, or I could just say I'm sensitive to light. I wear sunglasses. So I took that same approach. Instead of saying I struggle with having post-traumatic stress, I struggle with being around people, I struggle with anxiety, I just started saying I have post-traumatic stress. And that prompted the question, okay, now what? Now what? What do you want to do about it? Well, I want to connect with people. Okay, what does that mean? It means I go up and talk to people. Oh my God, panic attack. Okay, well, how can you work with that? What's the worst possible thing? What do you fear? Well, I fear somebody coming up and touching me from behind. Okay, do something about it then. And that's where initially Izzy was trained to sit behind me and create that space so that way I could move away from the walls and move away from like knowing exactly where all the exits were and how many people there were in the room and everything else. That helped bring that anxiety down because I changed the word. So if we change that word, that instead of suffering with anxiety, you can just say, I have anxiety with this issue. Do you want to try that and see how it feels?
Sure. What? I have anxiety with this issue. So you're owning it. Is that what you mean? I think for a lot of people, though, it's really hard to admit that they have a fear or have anxiety. That's part of the disease,
sense.
Right? That they can't go there.
Yes.
And that exacerbates the problem, I feel like, for a lot of people, right?
It absolutely does. And please know, I am the dude that I made fun of like 5 years ago when I got out of the Marine Corps. This is some woo-woo stuff. But when I was living opposite of woo-woo, just think about how the word is spelled, woo-woo. I was living in this place of ow, 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 ow. So as I decided to start having the conversation around mental health, then I can use my language to help me navigate what's going on in my mind. It's something like 70,000 thoughts per day, which means 6 per second, which means even as fast as I can talk, I'm not going to get to 6 words per second. So if I can slow my brain down by turning on my mouth to answer some very specific, direct questions, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid that I could get infected and infect Valerie. And we talked about this 2 nights ago as this came up for both of us. Well, what's our plan? Now that we know what the fear is, what's our plan? Well, the bedroom's going to be the hot zone, and whoever doesn't have it gets the short end of the stick and has to sleep on the couch. And we started coming up with a plan of how do we still care for the other person without cross-contaminating, living in a very tiny 1-bedroom apartment. So
Which
just
is,
by
that's
changing
the New York City reality too, right?
Right. So change your language and take command of what you have control over. It's not that you struggle with anxiety. If you don't want to struggle, then quit struggling and call it like it is. I have anxiety. I am scared of this. Because here's the deal. I love going to some of these personal development seminars where I'll get into a group and there'll be a bunch of strong women and a not so strong man. And maybe somebody will have started crying and the man will be like, well, men can't do that. And I'm like, oh, the man card game. I love this. Because I was a United States Marine. I'm a Mustang Marine, which means I served prior enlisted and then accepted a full commission. And then in the middle of a combat zone, I said, what we're doing here is not right. We must come up with a plan to immediate withdrawal. And I did it. Completely like my career was on the line. I was terrified. I am that guy that I made fun of 5 years ago. But because of that, when somebody wants to say, well, it's not very manly to talk about your emotions. And I'm like, according to which poster child are you talking about? Jocko, the Navy SEAL, he talks about expressing your emotion. Lewis Howe, ex-NFL football player, talks about expressing your emotion. So in that confidence, in that strength, you talk about your emotions because we are emotional beings. And if you bottle that up, eventually it blows up. And that's where we have like the midlife crisis, the emotional breakdown, the nervous breakdown. So don't bottle up. Answer a very specific question. What am I afraid of? And then, can I change it? Yes, no, don't know. And then follow the framework. I call it an immediate action plan because the same thing that we drilled in the Marine Corps, if we have the enemy ambushes us from the right, what do? And that's called an IA drill, an immediate action drill. And then we do it. And you do it again, and we do it again, and we do it, and then we do it at night, and then we do it with night vision goggles on, and then we do it again, and then we do it with our left hand, and you do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, until it becomes to where somebody says contact right, and you don't have to think about it. So you can do the same thing. Can I change it? Yes, no, don't know. If yes, I generate courage. If no, I generate serenity. If don't know, I generate wisdom. And if it helps, I can give you a link. I've got a little handout that I tell all my clients, print this out, post it everywhere, carry one in your purse, one in your billfold, put one in your kitchen, one in your office, put one everywhere. So that way, when that comes up, you don't have to think. Just pull out the instructions and read them. Would that help?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'll put the link in the description section below after This is over. That's awesome. We've been getting like a lot of people have been very chatty here, which is, and I apologize because I'm kind of very like zoned in here, but I see it all kind of popping up and I just wanted to read a couple of them. Brittany, I'm on disability for trauma, PTSD, anxiety, and told my doctor on a televisit of my symptoms. I have all of them, but still can't get a test. This is very common, and it's so frustrating. But I did beg for a nebulizer, which helped. I'm anxious for family and self, and I totally feel you, Brittany. It's been a month and still can't shake this, but nebulizer has started to help, thank God, or I would be in ICU myself.
Okay. Way to go, Brittany. Yeah. Way to go.
That just sucks. And I'm so glad. The good news is that if you have been having it for a while, then you probably just need to ride this out and you're going to be okay. My husband is on day 12 now, and he's pretty much okay now. There was times there in the first week where we're just like, oh my God, I don't know if he's ever going to shake this. But it seems like it's a 2 week. It is 2 weeks that people have been kind of estimating, and it seems like that is in fact true.
Right.
But please take care of yourself, Brittany. Ike, hi, Risa. What is left for you and your daughters to pray to God like you have never done before, and overdose yourself with vitamin C to boost your immune systems. Good motivation, Paul.
Love it.
Yes, thank you. Very true. Hey, Billy. Jeanette and Shay, Michelle. Wow, a lot of... Michelle, thank you. Appreciate these helpful steps to stay centered. Acknowledge specific fear. Ask, what do I have control over? But yeah. So I don't know. Are there... As... Because we're at 40 minutes now, so in terms of kind of like giving people, I love this whole, asking yourself the questions and the breathing techniques and the, those are like super concrete ways for people to, is that what the download is?
Yeah, it's actually just it's a big decision flowchart of life event. Can I change it? And then it breaks off into 3. Yes, no, don't know. If yes, I generate courage. And then it's got 3 little bubbles for you to fill in. What are your courageous actions? And you decide on it before you get into the situation.
Are there ways to prevent
was
the anxiety or panic attack? I feel like people who do suffer from it know it's coming. You know what I mean? Before it actually
Oh God,
comes.
I wish.
No?
I wish. Oh, I wish I could. I wouldn't need my service dog. If I checked the anxiety forecast and I knew at 2:00 I would have anxiety showers with gusting of sorrow and self-despair, I could shield against that. Here's what helps me: more regular meditation. And if you don't have a meditation practice, you do now. You breathe in for 5 through your nose, you hold it for 5, and you blow out for 7. By the way, I got that technique from a great friend of mine, Jen Godet. I want to give her a shout out for teaching that to me because it's helped out so many people, especially in these last few weeks. I wake up, I do a Wim Hof breathing technique. I go for a run. In my run recovery, I'm not just sitting there like sucking wind. I'm very intentionally breathing. In my shower, I'm intentionally breathing. As I'm getting ready for my breakfast, I'm intentionally breathing. As I was getting ready for this call with you, I went through some breathing techniques to make sure I could show up with the energy and the focus and the service of which I am capable. So if you want to get ahead of it and just be able to hold it at bay, increase the number of times throughout the day that you are bringing attention to your breath. And that is the basics of a meditation practice.
Because neurologically, that's actually changing your brain when you breathe like that intentionally.
100%. It is. And it's changing you from moving from your, I always get this confused. So I always have this as a note so I don't get confused. One of your listeners will correct me if I get this wrong. You have the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system.
Parasympathetic.
One of them is fight, flight. Yeah.
I always get them mixed
I'm
up
simple.
too.
I'm from Montana. Yeah. One of them is fight, flight, or freeze.
Parasympathetic is the calm state, I believe. And sympathetic is fight or flight.
Look for our comments. Somebody's going to throw us a low pitch here, slow pitch. When you have the discipline to go through the breathing exercise, you're keeping your body out of that fight, flight, freeze. And if we go back to the very beginning of this live cast, when we intentionally destroyed our posture, made every chiropractor in the world go, oh! And then we attempted to breathe like that. I felt emotions. It's my drill. I could feel my brain going, I don't like this. So as you continue to work with that breathing, you are going to change this neurologically. You are going to change the hormones and everything that is introduced into your system. And know that if you focus on your breath, that creates the foothold for all other decisions, all other language, all other action, because they're all linked. But it starts with your breath. So give yourself that gift of clarity. Give yourself that gift of command by commanding your breath to slow down. And when you hold it at the top, that does stuff neurologically. When you push out longer than you breathe in, that does stuff neurologically. So there's a lot of research that goes into a simple saying of breathe in for 5, hold for 5, push out for 7. But it works every time.
That's so true. Michelle, thank you. Breathwork helps activate the parasympathetic nervous systems.
And my main girl, Jeanette. This is my first coach. Jeanette Goodrich was my first coach. Sympathetic, fight or flight. There we go. She's such a rock star. Thanks.
So Kathy has a question. Do you have any suggestions for a person who lives alone, how to self-care when sick? So this is tough because there are so many people who live alone. And I actually have a couple of friends now who are showing mild symptoms, whatever mild means. And they do live alone. I think if you don't have symptoms yet, I think you really need to stock up. And if you need to have your team, you need to know your emergency contact, and you need to be in constant contact with that person so they know how you're doing, because they're not going to be able to come over, unfortunately. And that's where, phones and FaceTime and all this kind of stuff is really great. And hopefully that person should live close to you in the event that you do need to get rushed to the hospital, can call 911 for you or whatever it may be able to bring some groceries over and just drop them at the door. Be able to order a meal kit delivery thing for you or something if you can't cook. So you want to have your team in place, whether that's family or friends or neighbors. We've been going shopping for a couple of elderly neighbors next door because they're terrified of going out, and we're happy to do that. We leave it in the front door. It's awesome. Luckily, they're not sick, but I know once you're sick, it's really hard to do anything.
Right.
But make sure that you have your team in place before anything happens, is my suggestion. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Paul.
Record as much as possible to have some sort of objective feedback for yourself. You feeling yourself to see if you have a fever or not isn't going to do you much good. You being able to look inside a journal entry of you recording your temperature once a day or twice a day is going to tell you a lot more than you attempting to feel yourself and guess if you have a fever. And then use that journal as a tool to remind yourself to eat, to remind yourself to be active, to remind yourself to do some breath work and some meditation, get to bed on time, and limit your television consumption. Limit it, especially if you're watching the news. There's other things you can do around your home, and there's so many resources that are emerging. And I saw a thing, I use the app Marco Polo, and they had a thing that if I wanted to click on it to be able to connect with people that don't have anyone, there are programs out there that are saying, hey, we have so many people that are volunteering to check in on people. The app like Marco Polo is saying, hey, we'll help connect people that way.
Wow.
So I hope that helps her.
It's a new form of online dating, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. Everybody wants to do something. So a Google search can help put you in contact with that. Yeah, absolutely. I love this. I love the questions. Keep them coming.
Sushma, I don't know if I pronounced your name right. How's your family doing in terms of recovery? Thank you so much for asking. My daughter is in full recovery. My husband is on day 12, and he's pretty much good. His fever broke yesterday. It broke a few days ago, and then it came back. So it's kind of this up and down. And I see that with several people that they've had, would have a fever and it'd come back. But I think now he's at the end of it, which I'm hoping. And the coughing has subsided. We live together in the same apartment, but I physically have not seen him that much, quite honestly, because he's been quarantined in his room. And whenever we do see each other, we have masks on. So we text each other in our own apartment. We email each other. We even Skyped today, actually. So, that's our reality. So I guess I'll see him at some point. Kathy, I'm glad that, I think a plan definitely helps to diffuse anxiety for sure. So I'm about to wrap this up. I don't know if you have any last words, Paul.
Take command. Have the plan and then work the plan. The best time to have created the plan was like 6 months ago. The second best time is right now, and you have something that can help you. Focus on your breath, acknowledge your fear, gain some sort of perspective, and take action. That will help you out so much.
And how can people find you online?
PaulGowan.com, Gowin. Hang out on Instagram and Facebook mostly. And you can find me there at paul.gowan. And then we're going to also include in the show notes a link to where people can download that. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to give you the full giveaway because I have a video that walks people through how to fill out that as well. I think that could be of the most service to your audience.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. This was awesome. And everybody, please be safe, stay healthy, stay at home. We will get through this, hopefully sooner rather than later. But the only way we're going to do this is if we all stay at home and take good care of each other. So we will see you next time. Actually, on today's Monday. So Thursday's video, I'm actually going to sit down with my daughter. So we're going to talk about her experience having this. And so you guys can check that out on Thursday. But thank you so much. Thank you, Paul. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Bye.